They said the pâté saved the village. They said Madame Genevieve was a saint. They were half right. Before we begin, drop a comment right now. Tell us where you are in the world. What city, what country, what time is it where you are? Because this story is going to make you look at your food very differently tonight. Subscribe and turn on the bell if you have not already. You will not want to miss where this goes. The village of Valmere sat at the edge of the world, or so it felt to those who lived there. Tucked into a narrow valley in the hills of northern France, surrounded on 3 sides by dense forest, and on the 4th by a ridge of gray limestone that blocked the afternoon sun, it was the kind of place that maps forgot and travelers avoided. The road that passed through it was barely a road, more a suggestion, a muddy scar through the trees that connected nowhere of importance to nowhere of importance. In the winter of 1415, 300 people called Valmere home. Farmers, mostly. A blacksmith, a miller, a priest so old he had forgotten more prayers than most men ever learned. They were poor, but they were not hungry. The land was thin, but it was theirs, and they had learned over generations how to coax enough from it to survive. Then the storm came. It began on a Tuesday in late November, a slow gray sky that thickened through the morning and by noon had turned the color of iron. The snow started before Vespers. By midnight it was a wall. By morning it was a catastrophe. 3 days it lasted. 3 days of snow so heavy and so constant that men who opened their doors found themselves staring at a white wall where the world had been. When it finally stopped, Valmere was buried. The roof of the mill collapsed under the weight. The livestock, what was not already dead from the cold, were trapped in barns that had become frozen tombs. The grain stores, improperly sealed against a storm no one had imagined possible, were ruined, soaked, frozen, black with mold before the snow had even stopped falling. 300 people, no food, deep winter, and the road, the only road out, buried under 6 feet of snow and blocked by fallen trees for nearly 4 miles. They were alone. The priest held a mass that first Sunday after the storm. He spoke of God's testing of his faithful, of Job, of endurance. The congregation listened with the hollow eyes of people trying to believe in something larger than the cold growing in their bellies. 3 children had already died. An old man named Henry, who had lived through the worst winter anyone could remember, looked at the sky and said quietly to his neighbor that he did not expect to see spring. He was right. He did not. If this story already has you on the edge of your seat, drop a comment. Tell us where you are listening from. We read every single one. And subscribe, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about this village. Madame Genevieve had lived alone at the eastern edge of Valmere for as long as anyone could remember. She was, in the winter of 1415, 70 years old, though she wore her age the way certain trees wear it, not as decay but as depth, as evidence of something that had survived everything. Her hair was white and kept pinned beneath a dark cloth. Her hands were large and capable, the hands of a woman who had worked every day of her life and intended to keep doing so. Her eyes were pale gray, the color of the sky just before it decided what kind of day it would be. She had been born in Valmere. She had married a man named Robert, a quiet carpenter who built good chairs and said little, and who had died of a fever some 30 years past. She had no children, no family remaining. She kept a kitchen garden, a few chickens, and a cat so old and ragged it seemed to exist out of pure stubbornness. The village liked her in the comfortable, slightly distant way that small communities like their solitary members as part of the landscape, necessary without being intimate. She was known for her cooking, specifically for her pâté, a dense, fortifying preparation she made in an iron pot over her hearth, thick with herbs and meat and something else, some quality that was difficult to name, a richness that sat in the belly like a warm coal and kept the cold away for hours. She had given it away at market days and feast days for years. It was, people agreed, the best thing they had ever tasted. When the storm hit and the village began to starve, it was Madame Genevieve who appeared at the door of the priest's house on the fourth morning with a large earthenware pot and a calm expression. "There is enough here for 30 people," she said. "I will make more." The priest stared at her. The village had nearly nothing. She was one old woman living alone. "How?" he asked. "I manage," she said, and left him holding the pot. The pâté was distributed that evening. People wept eating it, not from sadness, but from something more complicated, the relief of a body remembering what warmth felt like. Children who had been listless for days sat up and asked for more. The priest ate 2 portions and then sat in silence for a long time, his hands folded, thinking about Providence. She brought more the next day, and the day after. Through the entire brutal winter, through the months when the road remained impassable and the stores remained empty, and the cold pressed down on Valmir like a hand trying to extinguish it, Madame Genevieve's pat appeared every few days at the priest's door, and every person in the village ate, and no one else died of hunger. They called her their angel, their saint, the old woman who had saved them all. Not one of them asked where the meat came from. Did you feel that chill that has nothing to do with the cold? Drop a comment. We want to know what you think is happening. Tell us your theory. And like this video, it helps this story reach more people. The spring came eventually, as springs always do, indifferent to the suffering that preceded them. The road cleared. Travelers began passing through again. Valmir rebuilt, slowly, imperfectly, with the particular determination of people who have stared into an abyss and chosen, against all reasonable expectation, to step back. New grain stores were built, better sealed. The mill was repaired. Children were born. Life, in its stubborn, undignified way, continued. Madame Genevieve continued making her pat, not in the desperate quantities of that first terrible winter, but regularly, reliably, brought to market in small earthenware pots that sold immediately and were spoken of by buyers in terms usually reserved for experiences rather than food. A merchant from Lyon who passed through in the summer of 1417 offered her a sum that made the miller's jaw drop. She declined politely. "It is for the village," she said simply, "not for Lyon." But there were other things that accumulated quietly the way small doubts accumulate, unexamined until they become impossible to ignore. The first was the travelers. Valmir sat on an unimportant road, but travelers did pass through. Merchants, pilgrims, soldiers moving between garrisons, the occasional wandering scholar. Most passed through without incident. But over the 5 years following the Great Storm, a pattern began to form in the village's collective memory. The way patterns form in things people do not discuss directly, but notice nonetheless. Travelers who stopped for the night sometimes did not leave in the morning. What was strange, what no one said aloud but several people turned over privately in their minds, was where these disappearances tended to cluster. Not at the inn, where the fire was warm and the wine was acceptable. Not on the road itself, where bandits might be expected. Near the eastern edge of the village, near the small stone house where an old woman lived alone and made the best pâté anyone had ever tasted. Something is wrong in Valmir. Something has been wrong for 5 years. Drop a comment. What do you think Madame Genevieve is hiding? Subscribe because the investigation is about to begin. Thomas Renard arrived in Valmir on a gray afternoon in October of 1420, riding a horse that had seen better days and wearing the expression of a man who had been traveling too long and sleeping too little. He was 25, lean and dark-haired, with the careful, observant eyes of someone who had learned young that attention was a form of survival. He had been, until recently, a clerk in the household of a minor magistrate in the city of Reims, a position that had given him a taste for investigation and a familiarity with how lies accumulated in the spaces between official records. His brother Philippe had passed through Valmer 6 weeks earlier. A message had arrived, then nothing. No letter, no return. Philippe was 22, cheerful, unreliable, and in the habit of forgetting to write, but not for 6 weeks. Not when he knew Thomas would worry. Thomas had 3 pieces of information when he arrived. First, that Philippe had indeed reached the village. Second, that at least 4 other travelers had been reported missing along this stretch of road over the previous 3 years, their disappearances noted in different jurisdictions and therefore never connected into a pattern. Third, that Valmer was the only settlement of any size along the relevant section of road. He took a room at the inn and began carefully to ask questions. The villagers were friendly, perhaps too friendly. They spoke readily about the great storm, about the months of hunger, about the woman who had saved them. They spoke about her with a reverence that Thomas found upon reflection slightly too consistent, as if it had been agreed upon. "Madame Genevieve," the innkeeper said, "a saint, that woman, an absolute saint. Without her, we would all have perished." "She fed you through the winter," Thomas said. "Every day, or nearly. Her pâté, you have never tasted anything like it." "Where did the meat come from? In the middle of winter, with the roads blocked and the stores ruined?" The innkeeper looked at him for a moment, just a moment before smiling. "She manages," the innkeeper said. "She always has." That night, lying on his narrow bed, Thomas turned the phrase over and over in his mind. "She manages." It was the same phrase, word for word, that 3 other villagers had used when he had asked the same question. 3 different people, the same 3 words. He did not sleep at all that night. Thomas spent 3 days in Valmer before he allowed himself to form a theory. There were, he was told, 2 routes through Valmer. The main road, which ran through the center of the village, and a shorter path, a genuine shortcut that shaved nearly 2 miles off the journey, that ran along the eastern edge of the settlement through a dense stand of oak trees before rejoining the main road beyond the valley. "We do not recommend that path," the innkeeper said immediately when Thomas asked. "Why not?" "Dangerous. The ground is uneven. People have hurt themselves." "Any travelers been lost on it?" A pause. Longer this time. "Travelers who do not know the road should not take shortcuts," the innkeeper said. "We always tell them to stay on the main path." Thomas went to look at the shortcut the next morning. It was narrow, through dense trees. The ground was uneven in places, but it was not dangerous, not in any way he could identify. What it was, however, was private, screened from the village on both sides by the trees, running directly past the back of a small stone house at the eastern edge of the settlement. Madame Genevieve's house. The second thing he noticed was the smell. On his second afternoon, the wind shifted and Thomas caught something on the air, faint, almost masked by wood smoke and cold earth, but unmistakable to someone who had once spent a summer assisting a coroner. The smell of something dead, something larger than a chicken or a rabbit. The third thing was the pâté itself. The priest who had invited Thomas to supper served it. Thomas ate carefully, analytically, turning each bite over with the attention of a man trying to identify something without knowing exactly what he was looking for. The flavor was extraordinary, dense and rich and complex in a way he had never encountered. There was pork in it, he thought, and herbs. But underneath it all was something else, a quality he could not categorize. Not unpleasant, in fact, deeply, disturbingly pleasant. A flavor that was not quite like any animal he had ever eaten. He set down his spoon. "Remarkable, is it not?" the priest said, not looking up. "She has a gift." "What is in it?" Thomas asked. "Pork, herbs. She keeps her recipe close." "You have never asked?" The priest looked up then. His expression was serene, the practiced serenity of a man who has decided not to know something. "There are gifts one accepts with gratitude," he said carefully, "and questions one chooses not to ask. Stop everything. Drop a comment right now. What do you think is in the pate? Tell us your theory. We are reading every single one, and if you are not subscribed yet, do it now. What happens next will stay with you. Thomas went to the house on the fourth night. He went alone in the dark, an hour after midnight when the village was fully still. The house was small and solid, well maintained for its age. A light showed under the door. He circled it quietly, keeping to the tree line, and found what he was looking for on the north side. A low wooden door set into the foundation, a cellar entrance. It was latched, but not locked. He stood for a long moment, his hand on the wood, listening to his own breathing and the wind in the trees and the distant sound of an owl somewhere deeper in the forest. Then he lifted the latch and pulled the door open. The smell hit him first. Not the smell of death he had expected, or not primarily. There was that underneath, old and layered into the earth itself. But above it, warmer and stranger, was the smell of animals. A rich, dense animal smell, the smell of a barn, of hay and manure and living bodies. He descended the stairs slowly, his candle held low. The cellar was large, larger than the house above it suggested was possible, and it was, in the most literal sense, a farm. Animals, everywhere, animals. Chickens in wooden cages stacked 3 high along the left wall, rabbits in hutches, 3 pigs in a pen at the far end, 2 goats, what looked like a small sheep, all of them alive, all of them well-fed, all of them watching him with the particular incurious attention of animals accustomed to human presence. Thomas stood in the middle of this underground farm and tried to understand what he was seeing. The pate, the meat, the endless supply through winters and through lean years. She had not been conjuring it from nothing. She had been farming, below the ground, in secret. He almost laughed. He was reaching for the stairs when his foot hit something. He looked down. There was a bundle on the floor, half hidden behind the pig pen. Cloth, he thought at first. Old cloth in a pile. He moved closer, holding the candle lower. It was not cloth, it was a man. Young, dark-haired, lying on his side, breathing slowly, deeply unconscious. His hands were not bound. There was no visible wound. He looked impossibly like he was simply asleep. Thomas knelt and turned him over. It was Philippe. Like this video if your heart just stopped. Drop a comment. Did you see that coming? Tell us where you are watching from right now. Subscribe. The truth about what happened is almost here. He heard her on the stairs before he saw her. Not running, walking. Steady, deliberate footsteps, each one placed with the confidence of a woman who had walked these stairs 1,000 times in the dark and did not need a light to navigate them. She appeared at the bottom of the stairs carrying a lantern and wearing an expression of complete composure. She looked at Thomas. She looked at his candle. She looked at Philippe, still unconscious behind the pig pen. "You found it," she said. "I found it," he agreed. A silence. The animals shifted and murmured around them. "He is not harmed," she said, nodding toward Philippe. "He came down the shortcut path 4 weeks ago. I warned him not to. There is a place where the ground gives way, an old sinkhole covered in vegetation. He fell. He cracked his head on the limestone below. I pulled him out before he could come to further harm." "You have been keeping him here for 4 weeks," Thomas said carefully. "He has a skull injury. He drifts in and out. I did not know if he would survive. I did not want to move him until I was certain he would not die on the journey. I have seen head injuries before. My husband had one. Moving him too soon killed my husband." Thomas looked at his brother, at the pale face, at the even breathing, at the pile of clean cloth folded beside him, at the cup of water placed nearby. "The others," Thomas said. "The other travelers who disappeared." She was quiet for a moment. "3 of them fell on the same path over the years, the same sinkhole, hidden differently each season depending on the growth. I warned everyone I could. I told the village to warn travelers away from the shortcut, but some do not listen, or they come through at night when no one is awake to warn them. 3 fell, Thomas said. What happened to them? She set the lantern down on a shelf and looked at him directly. 2 survived. I nursed them, and they left. 1, an older man, already ill when he arrived, did not survive his injuries. I buried him in the forest properly with prayers. I did not know his name. I still do not. Thomas was silent for a long time. He thought about the strange, unidentifiable quality in the pate, the flavor that was not quite like any animal. The pate, he said finally. What is in it? For the first time, something shifted in her expression, a slight hesitation. Pork, herbs, thyme, rosemary, bay, rendered fat, and... Wild boar, she said. There is a sounder of them in the deep forest, 2 miles east. I have been hunting them for 30 years. My husband taught me. No one in the village knows, because if they knew, they would hunt them too, and they would be gone within a season. Wild boar. Thomas looked at the animals around him. The chickens, the pigs, the rabbits and goats. All of it hidden below ground, all of it kept secret. Not because there was anything sinister in it, but because an old woman who had learned through bitter experience that survival required secrecy had built herself a hidden farm and a hidden hunting practice and had used both for 5 years to feed a village that did not know it was being fed. Why did you hide it? Thomas asked. The farm, the animals. Why not tell anyone? She looked at him as if the answer was obvious. Because the last time I had something worth having, she said quietly, people took it. She said it without bitterness, simply as a fact. Thomas thought about her husband, 30 years dead. About a woman alone at the edge of a village, building something secret and sustainable below the ground, feeding people who did not think to ask why they were being fed. He thought about all the things people choose not to examine when the examination might cost them something they need. Stop and drop a comment. Did you see the twist coming? Were you wrong? Were you right? Tell us. And tell us where you are in the world right now. Subscribe and share this story because it deserves to be heard. Felipe recovered fully. He left Valmer in November of 1420 on a clear, cold morning, riding beside his brother, carrying in his saddlebag 3 jars of pate wrapped in cloth. She made me promise not to tell anyone where I got these, he said. I know, Thomas said. Thomas filed a report with the magistrate's office in Reims, a carefully worded document that noted the dangerous sinkhole on the shortcut path near Valmer, recommended its proper marking and fencing, and recorded the disappearance of 1 traveler to natural causes. It did not mention underground farms. It did not mention secret hunting practices. It did not mention an old woman who had fed a village for 5 years from a cellar no one was supposed to know about. Some truths, he had decided, were not the law's business. The sinkhole was fenced the following spring. No more travelers disappeared on the shortcut path. Madame Genevieve continued to make her pat. She brought it to the village as she always had, in small earthenware pots. She declined, as she always had, to share her recipe. The villagers continued to call her their angel, their saint, the woman who had saved them. She accepted the title with the same composure with which she accepted everything as a fact about the world, neither requiring acknowledgement nor deserving excessive gratitude. She died in the winter of 1431, at 86 years old, in her bed, with her ancient cat asleep at her feet and a pot of pate cooling on the hearth. The village mourned her as one mourns the end of an era, with the quiet, bewildered grief of people who had always assumed the thing would last. They found the farm below the house 3 days after she died, when the priest went looking for the source of the animal sounds he had been hearing through the floor for years and choosing, with practiced care, not to investigate. He looked at it for a long time. Then he closed the cellar door, walked back to the church, and said a mass for the soul of a woman who had understood something about survival that most people spent their whole lives avoiding the knowledge of. That the world is cold, and that the people who endure in it are not always the ones who look the way we expect them to. This was shadow of the past, and Madame Genevieve was no monster. She was something rarer and stranger, and in the end, more frightening. She was a woman who survived. If this story surprised you, if the ending was not what you expected, drop a comment right now. Tell us what you thought was in the pate. Tell us where in the world you are listening from. We read every single comment. Like this video. Share it with one person who loves a good mystery. Subscribe and turn on the bell because we have more stories like this one. Stories where the monster is not what you thought, and the truth is stranger and sadder and more human than the legend. We will see you in the next one.